Notice is hereby given of a Friendswood City Council regular meeting to be held at 5 p.m. on Monday, October 7th, 2019 at Friendswood City Hall, Council Chambers, 910 South Friendswood Drive, Friendswood, Texas, regarding the items of business according to the agenda listed below. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll ask Pastor Jim Bass, my favorite Friendswood pastor, to come up. And following him will be Michael and Hayden coming right up to give the pledges. So if y'all will remain standing.
Just because I see you most of the Sundays, right? So, most Sundays. Let us pray. Lord, we give you thanks for all your blessings that you have given to us. We acknowledge that every good and perfect gift comes from you, and for this we are grateful. Lord, we give you thanks for our community, which we live. And Lord, we pray for all those who give themselves to keep us safe, especially our police officers, our firefighters, and first responders. We ask your protection upon them. And Lord, for this council that now gathers in meetings, we ask that you grant your wisdom to every member here, that everything that they do and every decision they make might be for the common good of our community. And for all this we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, guys, go ahead.
Go to the mic. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Thank you. All right, all right. Sorry. Bumping into you. Roller derby up here. All right. Item 4, communication from the public. To comply with provisions of the Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate on items discussed under this agenda item. The council may refer this item to the city manager or direct this item to be placed on the next regular council agenda. PowerPoint presentations are not conducted during the citizen comment period. Out of respect for those speaking during public comment, please refrain from any outbursts or interjections to include, but not limited to, applause and/or disparaging noises from the audience. Doing so discourages others from voicing their thoughts and opinions and disrupts the meeting. After I said all that, no cards? Somebody go back there and fill out a card. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do it, Phil. I'm just kidding.
Yes, yes. I'll be done real quick before that. If Murad could address y'all and state the path forward of the city to comply with the new state, the House Bill 28 or 48 something about public comments. If could just address that so that the public knows.
We have an attorney on staff, right up her alley.
House Bill 2840 was passed, and the section of the law that he's pertaining to is it says a governmental body shall allow each member of the public who desires to address the body regarding an item on an agenda for an open meeting of the body to address the body regarding the item at the meeting before or during the body's consideration of the item. Actually, our agenda has two places. To communication from the public, and they both take place prior to the body's consideration. So we're in compliance.
Great, thanks, Mary Kay.
You're welcome.
Item 5, work session. 5A, changes to the appointment policy for boards, commissions, and committees. Aubrey?
Good evening. Oh, here we go. Okay. So we are discussing some changes to the appointment policy tonight, and this is a little bit of a team effort. There were a handful of changes to the appointment policy, And if y'all have questions, the other staff members who represent these other entities that I don't are here to answer any questions. So the first change was to keep Friendswood beautiful, to add 2 alternate members. They have regular members, and they just don't want to change their quorum requirement, but to have 2 alternate members to be able to call on if needed to hold their meetings. The Planning and Zoning Commission, we changed our resolution several months ago to change our meetings from first and third Thursday to second and fourth Thursday. So this is just formalizing that change as well. And then kind of a new topic for discussion is our Zoning Board of Adjustment. Currently, we have 5 regular members and 4 alternate members. And there was a suggestion to possibly change to 7 regular members and 2 alternate members. So just a little bit of background on, let's see. I'm going to go over the other change, and then we'll get into ZBOA a little bit more. The volunteer application on page 1 was to add a line with city, state, and zip. Page 2 was to remove election worker as an option to check off. And page 4 was replace the word may with will, since it's now required and added prior to appointment at the end.
Will what? Background check, okay. Okay, thank you.
So, let's see. Do y'all have any questions about Keep Friendswood Beautiful for James Toney? No questions
How many
there?
members they have? 21, 20? Nice even.
And then, so planning and zoning, that one's already kind of done. Any questions about the volunteer application? Okay, so ZBOA. Currently, state law requires that the board must consist of at least 5 members appointed for 2 years. It says you may provide for the appointment of alternate board members, and that cases must be heard by 75% of the members. So if we have a 5-member board, that would be a minimum of 4. If we had a 7-member board, that would be a minimum of 5. I did go look at some other cities just to see where other cities are at. The most common seems to be the 5 regular and 4 alternate. City of Plano has 8 regular members and 2 alternate, and the city of Denton has 6 regular and 3 alternate. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, these requirements are actually in the zoning ordinance, so P&Z is going to have to look into this and make a recommendation. So if y'all are supportive of investigating this change, then we can commission the Planning and Zoning Commission to research and make a recommendation. But if y'all just want to leave it as is, I just don't want to waste Planning and Zoning Commission's time. They have other things to do too. So just kind of wanted to get some feelers for some things tonight. If y'all have any questions.
What is P&Z's recommendation?
We
They
don't
just
have
leave
a-
it the same?
We don't have a recommendation from them at this point.
Okay.
So that kind of leads into my question. What did bring this about in the first place to cause this to actually be on the agenda or on our work session? What was discussed?
With respect to the zoning board of adjustment, it was a council member's request or suggestion to look into appointing, and not calling Councilmember Rocky out.
Over here?
But in regard to the attendance and the frequency of certain alternate members sitting at the dais, I believe was the impetus behind this.
And don't I recall, ZBOA meets less than anybody. I mean, we would go years without a ZBOA meeting.
They usually meet at least 3 or 4 times a year.
Most recently, it was construction board of adjustment that has not met in years.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my reason for recommending it is it was, even with 4 alternate members, they sometimes were not being able to have meetings. So one of the things about doing this was the alternate members, some of them would be really good on the whole thing. And I think what we're going to have to do is if we go to 7, which I think we should do, we should make it very clear that you've got to attend. They get plenty of warning, weeks and weeks of advance warning. And the other thing is that when people come up in front of the zoning board of appeals, it's in general their last chance. And it'd be nice to have a full complement of your citizens up here hearing your case. So with 7 and 2 alternates, I don't think they're going to have any problem getting a quorum, and they really should be looking at themselves if they're having that problem. So that was the reason for doing this, because the alternate membership was just very confusing as to who does what and when they were on and when they would get called. So
with 7 members plus 2 alternates, needing 5 to establish quorum, any of the 9 count, an alternate can fill in. And why do we need to wait on P&Z to make it? Sounds like a good plan.
Just the way our ordinance is written, it requires Planning and Zoning Commission's input on
Okay.
zoning ordinance, yeah.
We'll bring, I have some more information about ZBOA to bring up in the next section of my presentation, so.
Okay.
All right, so, like nod heads, yeah? All right, we'll look into that. All right.
Yeah, so I don't know why we would change anything. I mean, I don't know. Making boards bigger does not guarantee a more frequent quorum. It doesn't, I don't know that it changes anything. So, I mean, doing things just for doing things just for the sake of doing them. I mean, and I get it, right? I mean, the goal or the intent is to get a quorum more frequently, and I appreciate that and understand that. But I think if you volunteer to be on one of these boards or commissions, that you should take that seriously, and that's a duty that you fulfilled. So I think changing it from 5 to 7 doesn't change that responsibility. I mean, we certainly don't have anything to hold over their head to make sure that they show up, other than removing them from their position if they don't make it so many times, which I know we've talked about doing in the past on other boards. I just don't know that this does anything, so why spend the time and energy at P&Z and spend the time and energy up here? It doesn't make sense to me. That's my opinion.
All right.
Well, talk to P&Z, see what they say. Maybe they'll agree with John. It's the same number of members, right? It's 9 members. We have 5 and 4 alternates now. We'd have 7 and 2. It does still 9. Thanks. It still drives up the quorum number, though. But I agree. We ought to be holding these people's feet to the fire, and if people are not showing up, we need to reappoint different people.
Did ZBOA make this recommendation too, or just Steve?
No, they have not weighed in on this.
Oh, okay.
Yet.
Have you had a meeting, Phil, since you've been appointed?
No,
They haven't
not
called
yet.
you yet.
Okay.
We will be having one soon because we need a new chair and vice chair, so that's
Oh.
on the list of things to do soon.
Better show up, Phil, or else you'll be the chairman. Don't-
The Rotary, a long time ago, if you didn't make the meetings in enough time, you got a goat delivered to your home. And I know that for a fact because I had a goat at my house, and I played with it for a whole week and had a great time when I was a little kid. But we could always get a goat and bring it to their house and tell them they're going to get to keep the goat for a week unless they show up.
Any other bad ideas? All right. Okay. Yeah, it's still early. Okay.
Okay, so that'll just piggyback into the next portion of the discussion tonight is the development regulations. And again, just looking for input. Planning and zoning has to weigh in on most of this, but we're just looking for guidance and direction at this point. So another topic is ZBOA authority. As far as state law allows ZBOA to do administrative appeals, which is not necessarily, but if one of the city staff, usually building official or city planner, make a decision that a developer or somebody doesn't necessarily agree with, they can appeal to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We've not had an administrative appeal that I can recall in the last 12 years. Special exceptions is another allowance by state law for ZBOA. And this is the particular section of our ordinance that is very, very detailed. We go into permanent special exceptions, we go into temporary special exceptions, and there's criteria for all of those items. State law doesn't have any criteria. They just say ZBOA can hear special exceptions. And so our ordinance is a lot more strict and detailed than state law. And then as far as variances, we also have a list of findings that the ZBOA has to basically check off in order to approve a variance, which again is not in state law. So our proposal is to consider making our ordinance just be consistent with state law. I did look at a few other cities, and basically they just copy what's in state law, and they're not as restrictive as we are. So if nobody has any major objections to that, we can have the commission look into that as well and make a recommendation on that. Again, it's in the zoning ordinance, so P&Z has to make the recommendation.
And who brought this recommendation?
This was brought up by staff mainly.
This followed a previous zoning board of adjustment case in which a particular item had gone back and forth a couple of times, and there were a number of opportunities for the item to be approved, but the commission didn't feel that their authority was broad enough to approve it.
Okay.
And this was an effort to allow us to have some more flexibility from the zoning board of a commission.
So this would make that whole process.
It would give them the opportunity to make a decision that made sense within the parameters of state law that didn't quite fit our ordinance previously.
Okay.
Possibly keep us out of court because ZBOA didn't feel like they had the authority to allow something that, so they basically, in the particular case that we're talking about, without going into details, they followed exactly what P&Z had recommended without making, and P&Z obviously has some constrictions on what they can do too. So anyway, we're just broaden their ability to make allowances, if you will, to things, and not make us have to go to court to settle these things. Because once ZBOA rules, they're they're a legislative body that we can't overturn what ZBOA enacts, votes on. So then we're sort of stuck. So if we give them more latitude, I guess, then hopefully we'll see what I'm saying, Phil?
And state law does still, like for a variance, there has to be a hardship on the property. But like I said, our ordinance has more items that they have to check off in order to approve a variance.
And so staff is okay with us
Expanding
or reducing the requirements, it sounds like?
And the answer to that is yes. And the rationale behind it is if the zoning board of adjustment, P&Z, and council ultimately just continue to reinforce the same rule, then there's really no relief valve. When staff does its review and says it's not in compliance, then that's pretty much what ZBOA then reinforces, which we appreciate it from a staff perspective, but in reality, there are instances in which it makes sense for the quasi-judicial board to make a recommendation that doesn't necessarily agree with staff's, but allows for a variance under certain circumstances.
Okay.
Understanding this correctly, this will be less restrictive, or it'll be the same restrictions as the state is. In other words, we're not going to be more restrictive than the state. So I think
Correct.
I would love for P&Z to weigh in on that one. I think that's probably a good recommendation.
Correct. It allows for there to be another body to make a decision that just doesn't continue to uphold the rules as written, allows for some flexibility.
Okay. Good.
All right. The next topic is building codes and fire codes. So we are looking at updating from the 2012 to 2018 International Building Codes and the 2017 National Electrical Code. These codes are, the International Building Codes are published by the International Code Council. All the codes are updated every 3 years. And our ISO rating requires that we adopt codes within 2 code cycles. So being on the 2012 right now, we're going to jump to the 18, just so we don't have to do this again in 3 years. It'll kind of put us a little bit ahead. As far as the 2018, our building officials here tonight, he can explain. The 2012 to 2015 was some cleanup, and then 2015 to 18 wasn't quite so bad. So he can go over those changes, and then Fire Marshal's here to kind of go over the fire code changes as well.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Brian Rowan, the building official. So for this iteration of code, this is kind of a perfect year to go ahead and jump the step to, rather than going to the 15, then into the 18, just because the 15, like I said, Aubrey had said, was kind of a cleanup of the 12. The 12 was kind of our big step on code. 18 kind of clarifies things and makes it a lot more enforceable. It made it actually, many of the items made it easier for the contractors. It just made it easier for code officials to understand it, made it easier for contractors to go ahead and enforce, and gave them far more flexibility. Unfortunately, code's a dry subject, and there's not some wild, exciting things that are changing. A lot of the changes in the codes are bringing in solar is the big portion of it. I've got books that just talk about the changes in all the different codes, and I would guess that more than 60% of that is bringing in new technology and solar, just updating it and providing opportunities, which we still are just on the cusp of it. We do start to see a lot more solar programs in the city, but we aren't at the point where it's a big change for the contractors that we're dealing with on that. They're more on top of it than, say, a lot of others because it's so new technology anyway. So on the international code, that's the predominant one that we see on the commercial side. We got the, there we go. The residential is, like I said, again, some dry code things that are coming in. It does allow for some more flexibility on some things as far as adding longer cords for the dishwashers, and other than that, it's not anything crazy. Where when we went from the 9 to 12, we did start to see some different changes. These are just things that kind of clean up. Bringing back in some of the old things that had dropped off, water hammer arresters is, like I said, nothing real exciting. Plumbing code and mechanical code are kind of in the same situation. The International Energy Conservation Code is one of the codes that was the big hurdle that we ran into when we went into the 12. It was very difficult to for the contractors to comply with that. So we started taking the 15 code because it corrected some of the sins of the 12 code already. So a lot of our contractors are already into the 12 and starting to move into the 18 as we've gotten into that point. The electricians, for the most part, they stay to the latest codes. Their TDLR license requires them to be to the latest code, so most of them are already enforcing onto the 2017 National Electric Code. We're not breaking any new ground here. We are moving into a situation where we are able to kick the can on this ISO, so we aren't going to come back in and keep changing things on the contractors. So that is our goals moving into the 2018. Any questions over building codes? I know it's
How many
fun.
solar inspections have you done this year?
I can get you that number, but
Ballpark.
we are at, I saw 3 solar permits come in this week. So we are starting to see that technology definitely coming into the community. Exciting to see, and it's between the backup generators and solar, we are starting to see a lot of alternate sources of power. Obviously, when we get in these situations with the hurricane, and then also I think we are embracing a more conservative nation.
Thanks, Brian. Brian Mansfield.
Brian Mansfield, the Fire Marshal's Office. Don't have a whole lot of changes. Most of them are the same ones that we've had before, some amendments. We already have, we're talking about ZBOA earlier, they already act as our Board of Adjustments, so we removed that out of the code and allow that to happen. Also, the same thing with the penalties. So the other thing that we have is about sprinklers for anything that's over 11,999, so basically 12,000 square foot, whether that be commercial or residential. And then this year they added a new group hazard occupancy, and we have also adopted a few more pendencies that are allowed in the, don't foresee any major issues or any impacts on any current construction. K and H will probably be the ones that would be used the most as far as the group H hazard, as we're doing some possible construction over on the Beamer side of town. And then on our life safety code, just removing the requirements for sprinklers for single family and homes. Pretty straightforward, for the most part, the same as last year, or the last 2012. Not a whole lot of additions or deletions. Questions for me? All right. Thank you.
So we are working on the ordinance changes for that, so you'll see that again. We're hoping for that to be effective January 1st of next year, just to have a easy new effective date. So the next item kind of follows building codes. With House Bill 2439, the state changed the requirements that municipalities cannot prohibit building materials or methods that are allowed by a model code for either residential or commercial structures. So some proposals with this, we're gonna have to amend our zoning ordinance, so you'll be seeing some changes with this. There are a couple of local amendments that we have to the building code, or I think electrical code, that we're gonna have to omit when we do our code change or a code update, because the state doesn't allow us to make those exceptions anymore. The plan for the zoning ordinance, as far as our exterior building materials for commercial, we're going to try to figure out a way to keep our preferred materials in the ordinance, but obviously not prohibit developers from any building materials that would be allowed by building code.
Go ahead, Steve.
I've had a number of discussions with my neighbor, Dr. Bonin, about this. And he honestly admits that when this bill came through, nobody paid much attention to it and it sailed through. And he's been told by multiple cities, not just us, that this was a really bad bill. He has said that he would be willing to work with us and bring this bill up and amend it in the next cycle. And I think we probably got a pretty good chance. It originated because one city in the state passed an ordinance that required a certain building material, and there was only one option, Amarillo or somebody, and that's what got this all going. So he's willing, and he's going to probably actually come back and work with us. And I think there's other state representatives, I think, that are feeling the heat on this. So my guess is it'll get amended in some fashion to be a little more flexible for what we use it for in the next session.
So that would be 2 years from June before it could be changed, and that was kind of the intent of keeping all of our wording in there and meeting state law. But that way, hopefully, if it's changed back in 2 years, we can just revert back to what we already have. Right? Yeah. Yes.
So I was going to ask if, I know we have to be in compliance with the law, but can we give builders and developers our preferred, okay.
Yeah, and if they want to comply and agree to, and the market's going to drive a lot of that. I mean, surrounding buildings, you're going to want to blend in. You don't want to be, the only new metal building on 518. So, I mean, that's just not the trend at this point. So our hope is that, that will continue and, that they'll blend in with our, surrounding buildings already. We will definitely encourage it.
I know League City is trying to work around this bill by putting ordinance language in that requires you, I guess, to talk to your HOA. Is that how that works?
They're requiring property owners form what's known as a property owners association or homeowners association to establish these regulations. But as our illustrious city attorney has pointed out, the state law is very specific about not adopting rules that would circumvent state law. So in some respects, it could set us up for a legal challenge if we were to do
I was just going to recommend we don't do that.
Good, good.
Let's let our representatives do their job.
So this is my last one is sidewalks. So again, I'm looking for direction for planning and zoning. They have not weighed in on this yet. It's kind of an issue that's come up recently, and unfortunately, this is not a case to go to ZBOA because they can't completely waive a requirement. If they do a variance to a building height, it's, increasing the building height by a certain footage, and, there has to be a hardship, the shape of the lot or something. We can't just say, we can't take these cases to ZBOA and they just say, nope, you don't have to do a sidewalk. So we've had some instances right now. We've got basically sidewalks are required for all new development except residential with open ditch streets. So we've got infill lots and flood rebuilds that we require sidewalks for. These new homes are being constructed in existing neighborhoods, older neighborhoods that don't necessarily have sidewalks. There might be a sidewalk across the street, but not on their side of the street. Our current remedy is for them to pay into the sidewalk fund. We do have that set up. The sidewalk fund is an owner pays a fee before the issuance of their certificate of occupancy. It's an average of 3 contractor bids. The money is then deposited into a dedicated account just for that address, and the only thing it can be spent on is sidewalk at that location. After 10 years, an owner can request a refund, or the city can make a request to extend it for another 10 years.
Yeah, I don't like that idea at all. I think that's a horrible idea. We have people that are trying to rebuild their houses and get back in their homes. They've been flooded out. They've done everything that the city's requested them to do. They've built their house up. They've got houses on either side of them that are 4 feet lower than they are with no sidewalks whatsoever, and you're asking them to build a 90-foot sidewalk. You're not going to give them a certificate deposit until they do so. That's holding over their heads. I think that's a horrible thing that the city's doing. I've had calls on it, and I know some other people have had calls on it. But that's just not right. Those people should get a certificate of deposit. They've done everything the city has told them to do, and then we're saying, no, now you got to build a 90-foot sidewalk out in front of your yard, and nobody on that side, all the way down that way and all the way down that way has a sidewalk in front of their yard.
So I'm not going to shoot the messenger or anything, but I'm in 100% agreement, and I think it's very simple. Your property is grandfathered in. If you're the owner of the property ownership's not changing hands, you're rebuilding because you had a natural disaster to your home, it would be idiotic for this government body to require you to either build a sidewalk or pay into a fund.
And staff doesn't disagree, and the cases
Good.
that have been mentioned.
And I didn't think that you did.
No, but that's why Aubrey's here before you this evening. We've been able to work with those homeowners to get them where they need to be without providing a sidewalk. The difficulty is we're circumventing city ordinance. So that's
Correct.
before you this evening so that we're asking y'all to recommend a change to city ordinance.
Yeah,
that we
so
can fix that.
You
grandfather
can see
in
the direction
anybody-
that we're going in with regards to this.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
But I believe we focused on just the homes that are being rebuilt after Harvey. That picture right there, that's not the situation with that house. So there's one piece of this. This is for the folks who are trying to get back into their homes, and I totally agree. We should not put any more requirements on them. But when it's new construction, where they've torn down a home, they're building a new home, it has nothing to do with the flood, then I assume there's a different recommendation for that?
I don't have a recommendation, and I don't really have a solution at this point. My initial thinking is that if your block doesn't have sidewalks, that you don't have to put in sidewalks.
And I think it's that simple.
We gotta figure out a
Why
way
do
to
we,
write that
why
into
should it be that confusing? If you live on a street that doesn't have sidewalks, we're not gonna require you to build a sidewalk just because you knock your house down and rebuild it.
And we've got people that are coming in, they're wanting to buy these houses, redo them, get them back in shape. The
Sure.
next thing you know, they might want to flip that house. They are flippers. Well, that gets that house back in good construction, it gets it back on the market, and it gets it back paying taxes to this place. Why would we want to put up some kind of barrier or block them from trying to do what everybody wants them to do? Get these houses back up and in great shape and back on the tax rolls. I agree. You're not supposed to.
I think it's just common
Just because it's
sense.
new construction, we're not gonna go out there and, oh, you're new, you tore that one down and built it back up. We
Yeah,
want you
yeah,
to
yeah.
build new sidewalks.
I think it's just common sense. I think for every developer that comes in and wants to develop property, whether it's Avalon or whoever else, then yeah, they have to meet current requirements. Anybody that's in an existing neighborhood or an existing house can keep it the way that it's been for the last 123 years or whatever.
But this house is on a street where two other houses have been torn down and new houses are building up. So if you said, put the money in the fund, because it's quite conceivable on this street that all of those houses will be gone in a couple of years, and then you would use the sidewalk fund to put a sidewalk in.
But why would we tax people that way? That doesn't make any sense to me.
But we have people all the time complaining that we don't
They have
have
no sidewalk.
sidewalks.
People are wanting
So the whole
sidewalks.
point of this was to, I'm not
Well,
arguing.
no.
Just let me finish.
Yeah, please do.
I'm not arguing the contention that you guys said earlier. If you're on a street and you're the guy, and you rebuild from your previous property and nobody else has sidewalks and nobody else is rebuilding, fine, leave them alone. I'm with you on that. But I'm just telling you, there is an area in between that we need to define, and this is a perfect example of one. That whole street's going to get torn down and big houses are going to get put on it, and there won't be a sidewalk.
I don't think that we should hold the homeowner or the property owner hostage by requiring them to do something that's not already there. It doesn't make sense. Like we were going to make Boatwright Marine at Dickinson Bayou at the very end of this town pay into a sidewalk fund at one time. Now, I don't think that he did because common sense prevailed, but this is the kind of out-of-control stuff that we need to eliminate. And so if ever, let's just say, for example, the heart of the downtown, the older homes, for all those people that are building new homes, buying the property, tearing them down, rebuilding beautiful homes there, I am thankful as a city government that the property value increases like tenfold. That's enough. I'm not going to, the taxable value on that piece of property goes from $70,000 to $500,000. They're paying enough in taxes. And then we're going to come back and say, well, if you're not required to put a sidewalk in, then we're going to make you pay into a fund because somewhere down the line, 15 or 20 years from now, we'll have enough money to put a sidewalk in your whole subdivision. That doesn't make any sense. If you live in an area that doesn't have sidewalks, you shouldn't be required to have a sidewalk put in or to pay into a fund. It just seems like it doesn't seem that complicated to me.
I would just like to throw out there that Steve's hitting on a point that is, I think we need to consider. This area right here is actually a transition. You've got business on one side, you've got residential on the other. And this area actually backs up to the old junior high as well, which we talked about sidewalks to schools, which I realize it's not an active campus necessarily. But I think there may be some areas of town where we may need to evaluate whether or not a sidewalk would be beneficial. And granted, there may not be a sidewalk there now, so the fund would make sense. But I think there are going to be some situations where I don't think this is black and white, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think there's some areas that are transitional that we might need to take a look at. Does it make sense or does it not make sense?
Okay, so again, to be clear, and we may just agree to disagree. My point is if it's a single-family residential property and it does not have a sidewalk, The government should not require them to put in a sidewalk because there's some members in the community that want sidewalks. If that's the case, go to the voters for a bond and demand that you're going to put sidewalks in every neighborhood that you want a sidewalk in, and let them vote on it. I think it's ridiculous that we would go into single-family residentials and say, well, we think it's a good idea because we heard at the Rotary Club meeting that we need sidewalks. So we're going to make you pay into a fund so that we can put sidewalks in one day. That's the worst kind of government overreach that I've heard since we've been up here.
Then why is that logic any different from a new builder coming in?
Because it's a development. It is blank property. They are building a residential development.
But they're putting in new homes with new values. They meet every bit of your argument.
No, you're talking about taking an existing residential lot and requiring them to do something different. We've had this argument. I don't know if you were on council at the time, but we had the argument with the building codes, right? That if you added on to a building, so let's say, for example, you have a metal building downtown, right? And it's 10,000 square, 5,000 square feet warehouse, and you wanted to add 2,500 feet of office, that the whole entire metal building had to come down and be up to code. That was actually an argument when I got on council 9 years ago. And we said, no, why would we do that to the individual and punish him for improving his property? It didn't make sense. Well, this seems very similar, in my opinion.
Now, some of these, to Steve's point, are going to be safety issues down the road, I guess, through these transitions. Will those be further evaluated by another, is that going to be a committee evaluation, something that'll evaluate? I see there's a sidewalk across the street on this one. Did that person put that in voluntarily, or?
So that sidewalk was installed back when that particular roadway was built and then rebuilt. It was maintained. What I would suggest is the impetus for this originally was the flooded homes that were torn down and rebuilt, and it didn't make sense putting in a sidewalk that didn't connect anything. Obviously, there's multiple opinions on council. Let us run this through P&Z and bring a recommendation to you. We're wholeheartedly agreed from staff's perspective. We don't want to force a home that was torn down because of Harvey and rebuilt to put in a sidewalk to nowhere. Maybe give some options for consideration that may meet everybody's opinion up here. I'm saying that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. That I don't know how likely that is, but
I think we're all in agreement on two ends of this argument. The Avalon, you guys are going to put sidewalks in. The home that was destroyed or rebuilt because of Harvey, there was no sidewalk there before. We're not going to come in and say, oh, we're sorry, your house was flooded and you got to rebuild. Now you got to put a sidewalk in on top of it. Somewhere in the middle ground where, the gentrification of a neighborhood where people are coming in, buying maybe multiple lots, putting up big homes. Well, there's some, we probably need to discuss that a little more and figure out where we can agree on that one. But I think both ends, that we're in agreement. And then,
Well, I know there wasn't a sidewalk over to the high school, and this was a high priority of our honorable mayor, and I'm just thrilled to death with what turned out over there. But that was something, an incentive that he took upon himself and moved the entire city, saying, hey, this is a safety matter, like Brent was mentioning. Let's put these sidewalks to the high school. And it was paid for not by the homeowners. That was paid for by us. And the kids can walk now to school without being in the road, so that can happen. In every one of these situations where you might look at this and down the road, Steve Rocky might go, this is a safety issue. I think the city ought to put that in, and then we can agree to it or not agree to it.
And I would agree with that.
But when you sit there and say, okay, you got to rebuild this, and when you do, you're going to have to
And
put
if
in.
you don't have a sidewalk in, you can't move back into your house. So to use a very extreme example, so the big White House on 528 got burned down. So we're going to tell the big White House on 528 that when you rebuild, you got to build a sidewalk on 528.
that's a ditch.
the current code, that's an open ditch, so they wouldn't be required. But
I know
yes.
that. But if you're going to make these guys do it, that was an extreme example. If you're going to make these guys do it, then, what's next? No open ditches, and we're going to start making those people put in sidewalks?
And I will add, the Planning and Zoning Commission is passionate about sidewalks as well. And for instance, the Vergata Commons development, they requested to pay into the sidewalk fund, and the commission said, no, we need sidewalks. And so they figured out a way, and, we're getting sidewalks over there. So I think the commission, I think they have, good thoughts. We'll pass on your thoughts, and we'll see if we can get a good recommendation for you.
Thanks, Aubrey.
Just for the viewing public, no homeowners have been kept from moving into their homes. So I understand this is a concern. We need to figure out a solution, but everybody that's built a house has been allowed to move into it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, capital project update.
I would like to reintroduce council to our new Director of Engineering and City Engineer, Hill Arias. He is here this evening to give you all his first capital improvements report. Y'all seem feisty tonight, so good luck, Hill. Yeah.
I feel like a Price is Right contestant coming down all the way, taking the long way over here.
Come on down.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm here to give you the brief update to our capital improvement projects that we have ongoing at the city right now. If at any point you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me.
Technology.
Yeah. There it goes. Okay, the first thing I wanted to share with you guys is the completion of the construction of restrooms and the pavilion at Old City Park. City staff conducted a final walkthrough on September 24th, at which time we determined that the project was substantially complete. The city's Park and Recreation Department has now taken this project and taking it from here. They've added some signs, and they're stocking it up and making it user-friendly. And I did want to mention also that the acceptance of the improvements and the initiation of the one-year maintenance bond is part of tonight's consent agenda. Next, we have the ongoing construction of Blackhawk Boulevard Phase 2. To date, the city has spent $2.8 million on the construction of this project, and it's a $4.5 million project. As of last month, we were sitting at 62% done with the project. We're actually having a progress meeting tomorrow with the contractor, and they're going to give us some updated numbers on that. So it'll be a little bit more than 62%. They were rocking along in the weeks leading up to tropical storm Imelda, and due to that storm, it put them back about a week. But since then, they've gotten back into the groove of things, and they're moving along pretty quick. Their goal moving forward is to pour concrete every day if possible. And we will be getting, along with the completion percentage, we will be getting an updated schedule from the guys. And it'll give us a good indication as to when we might be able to expect the project to be wrapped up. But right now, I'm saying it's probably going to be in the first quarter of next year. And now the 2018 storm sewer cleaning and inspection project. When I came here, this project had a stop work order in place. Stop work order was issued back in April because of some confusion on the scope of the work. Since then, and in recent weeks, both city engineering staff and public works staff have met with each other and with the city attorney because we're trying to see where there's a breakdown in communication here, where we got to $674,000 expended on this project, and the contract is for 696, and we still have some streets left out there. So in meeting with them, it became evident that there were issues with the specs, the way it was written, and it gave the contractor the opportunity to do extra work because it was not clear that of what the scope of the work was going to be. Where we stand today, as you can see, we've spent about $675,000, and this was supposed to be a $696,000 project. Yes.
It was supposed to be a $696,335 project, and that was to do the entire job of storm sewer cleaning and inspection. We spent $674,597. How much have we gotten completed to the original contract? What we thought we were going to do is be completed with 696. We're at 674. How much have we done, and how much have we not done?
Of the original intended scope, it was about $194,000 worth of work. So there's a significant amount of work that was outside of the scope.
That we agreed to?
So we're right now.
Not real clear on that.
So short of speaking ill of any previous employees, we've had some issues that they had approved certain line items, things related to this contract that had left the project incomplete, but approved the contractor to do more work than we intended.
So we originally had $196,000 of work done,
No.
contracted for, but they billed us $674,000.
No, the original contract was for the 696. So we didn't have 194,000 for this project, and we've expended 674.
Okay.
The total project cost was $700,000 from the get-go.
Okay.
The concern is that the contractor did work outside the scope of what was originally intended, doing ad alternate items that were things that were helpful, but not necessarily a requirement. And so, correct. And so what we're doing right now is we're going back with the contractor to try to rectify some of these things. It's unfortunate we've corrected the mistake on our end, but we're still trying to work with the contractor to get what we initially wanted done and need done completed.
What percentage of the work that we initially wanted done has been completed, regardless of the cost?
Of the work that we wanted done, that's been completed, it's a little over 50%, between 50 and 55%.
We can work out an agreement, and we're in the process of doing so with the contractor to maybe make this a multi-year approach to get everything completed. Unfortunately, this was an effort that's done after Tropical Storm Harvey, and it hadn't been done on a routine basis, not to the degree that we did following Harvey. My recommendation with council, much like everything else, is that we do this on a 5-year cycle continually, that this is not a situation that the storm sewers are left without it being jetted out and cleaned of any silt or debris that builds up over time until the next storm, but that it's done routinely.
I did want to add also,
Excuse me, the
yes.
change orders. This extra work was done with change orders, right?
Correct.
And how much were the change orders for, I mean, individually? Were there several of them, or was there just one, or?
It was authorization by staff that wasn't an official change order, but authorized the contractor to do some additional work. So it's not,
Change orders, or was it one?
it was multiple correspondences, but it wasn't an official change order.
So of the work that's been done, was it all needed to be done? Is that what I'm hearing?
It was needed to be done, but not to the extent to supplant a previous item, a previous street or two that we needed to get completed. So it wasn't as important as what we wanted to get completed. We've corrected the issue with staffing. We have a whole new department associated with this, and we've put some new players in place to monitor these things so that we don't have a similar issue reoccur. But as he'll get started, he's coming across some of these things that we're.
And this was something that, I came in and I immediately realized, man, this is going to be a uncomfortable fix here. What kind of mess did I inherit here? But the contractor has been good here in the recent past couple of days to communicate with us. And something that we've done is we have sent to them a request for cost proposal. This request contains in it the streets that had not been done that were in the original scope. And not only that, we gave them quantities so that we can get a good, accurate number back. Previously, they didn't have quantities. They had streets, is what they had.
So in my opinion, it's a hard stop at 696.
Correct.
And you guys bring any additional requests back to us.
And that's what we're doing.
Okay.
With the solution on how to fund it and how to make it fit the budget. Correct. Correct.
I guess at that point, we'll prioritize what needs to be done and how to go out and figure
Right.
out where the money's going to come from.
And this contract was intended to be a once and done finite work activity. My recommendation is for it not to be a once and done, and that it's done systematically on a continual cycle, just like you would go cut a ditch.
Okay. Moving on to our 2018-2019 street maintenance program. The program itself is in the final stages, getting near completion. We're currently waiting for the contractor to return and complete the rest of Wilderness Trail, which was not done previously because there's some, as I understand it, some home construction going on, and it didn't make sense to lay down fresh asphalt and have a whole bunch of trucks driving down that road. So we've got a few minor details left, such as the installation of loop detectors at some traffic lights and addressing some concerns that several citizens have expressed in the transition from the new asphalt to their driveways. So we're going to address that also. Finally, one thing that we hope we can get to do is there may be, after all is said and done, there may be enough money left to repave Diamond Lane. Diamond Lane is on FM 2351 between Mary's Creek and Clear Creek. It's a cul-de-sac, asphalt, half the asphalt's gone. And so the residents there have come to pay us visits frequently and keep reminding us that, hey, will you help us out? Well, this may be a solution here if we have enough money left. Go finish Diamond Lane, and if it doesn't happen this year, then it'll be a priority next year in the next.
And Hill's following the pavement management plan recommendation, so Diamond Lane was already on the slate to be completed.
Can I ask a quick question? Mo, you know this better
Spreading
probably.
Oaks.
West Spreading Oaks?
Yes.
Yeah, is that one done, or are they going to do something to clean it up?
They're
further?
supposed to come back and redo that roadway to address some of the anomalies associated with it.
Okay, on to our 2019-2020 street maintenance program. Our projects coordinator, Bria Whitmire, and she's sitting in the back there. I didn't tell her that I was going to call her out, but she's a licensed engineer like myself. Between she and I, we're working on the specifications for this project and hitting the ground running. She's using the IMS report that the city has previously gotten and going through that and then seeing where all repairs need to be made. And in the meantime, I'm going through the specifications, reading it line by line, and making sure that what it says in there meets state law, starting early in 2020, if weather allows. The next capital improvement project we have coming up is the rehab and remediation of lift station number 23. This is a lift station that is located at the intersection of FM 518 and Oak Drive. The project will address several issues that have been ongoing with the lift station itself. The most noticeable issue is how hydrogen sulfide has taken a toll on the facility. The interior of the wet well has a significant amount of pitting, and due to a large amount of inflow and infiltration that this lift station receives, it can get backed up at times, especially after a heavy rainstorm. So this project will address these issues and more. The estimated construction cost is $4 million. The design consultant will be submitting the final plans to the city this Thursday, and we plan on having a bid opening on November the 14th. And with the hopes of awarding that bid in December. Finally, I wanted to share with you guys some of the drainage advocacy efforts that have been we've been undertaking in the past recent weeks. On the screen, you'll see a list of entities with whom the city has met to discuss drainage issues from small to big. The city has been represented by some combination of Murad, Stephen, myself, and Renee at some of these meetings here. As you can see, we've been pretty busy, but we're not going to slow down now. We will continue our efforts to represent the city and get as much information we possibly can, and do anything we can do now to ensure that the city of Friendswood, when it comes time for something to happen, will be up there at the front of the line. And finally, I wanted to make a note to you guys. We do have the job opening posted for a deputy director of engineering and projects. And we've been pretty upfront with indicating that we're looking for somebody with a good background in hydrology and hydraulics. And so this person's going to be our drainage guru. It's been posted for a couple weeks now. It's going to be closing later on this week, and after that, we'll have our interviews lined up. We've got some, looks like we've got some good candidates out there, and looking forward to getting this filled. So, are there any questions?
No, thanks, Hill.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, now if council will allow me to suspend the rules, I'd like to jump down to Resolution 13A, which is the resolution to declare tomorrow Westwood Elementary School Day. But before I actually read that resolution and we vote on it, I'd like to get some help from some second graders from Westwood Elementary. So go ahead, Brian, let the crowd in. Just unleash the hounds. It is on. Oh. Excellent. So
You realize you're about to do something.
I have lost all control. So this is a very popular night here in our city council meetings. This is our second year doing this, having second graders come in and take over city council. So if you all will just stay where you are for a second and let me introduce you. I want to first say a few words about why we started this. So yeah, please, everybody come into the room and listen while I don't come up. Don't come up. Please. I know you're in a hurry to get this up here and take over. Yeah. Yeah. Best position here. So Like I was saying, this is a very popular city council meeting. This is the second year we've done this, and we really appreciate the support from FISD and CCISD in allowing their second graders to come over and be involved. And a couple of reasons that we've decided to do this last year was we wanted first these second graders to learn a little bit about how government works. Number two, we wanted them to understand the value of community service, because I don't know that they all know that all of us up here are volunteers. We don't get paid. We give back to our community. Not the city manager, city attorney, or city secretary, of course. We pay them. But the 7 city council members up here are community members who volunteer their time to come back. So we want to emphasize the importance of community service to them. We want to foster leadership development within our second graders, and these 10 second graders that we're about to introduce have been pulled out of, I don't know, Principal Moffitt, how many second graders do you have at Westwood? Hundreds? Hundreds. So we're looking for big things from these 10 second graders in the future, because, we're giving them an opportunity to sit up here and take over our seats for a couple of minutes. And then fourth, of course, and thank you for being here, Superintendent Thad Rohr. We want to support our school district's character education program. So with that, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start with the city manager, and I'm going to introduce those second graders that are taking over for us, okay? So I'm going to walk over here. Luckily, my microphone travels with me. And our city manager is going to be Mahalis Savidis from Mrs. Collins' class. So you're going to sit right there, Mahalis. Number 2, our city attorney, Audra Ford from Mrs. Waltonbaugh's class. Number 3 is our city council position 1, Blake White from Mrs. Trahan's class. It's a great chair, yeah. Council position 2 is Alden Clark from Mrs. Delka's class. Alden. And as they take their seats, y'all can help them, show them their pin, and we have little gifts for them, cards and things like that. Council position 3 is Etta Reed from Mrs. Compton's class. The mayor is Violet Hinckley from Mrs. Ellis's class. They always find a mayor better looking than the real mayor. Try not to take that personal. Okay, council position 4 is Kaylee Johnson from Mrs. Collins' class.
Way to go, Kaylee. Best spot.
Yeah. Council position 5, Valeria, is that right? Valerie or Valeria? Pavia. Valeria? From Ms. Lowe's class. Council position 6 is Chandler Hopkins from Mrs. Comer's class. And our city secretary is Presley Vaughn from Mrs. Sosie's class. So how about a round of applause for all of our second graders? But you don't just get to sit there and look good. You got to do some work now. So I'm going to turn it over, and I think Mahalis, do you have the first line? Yes. Do you have your script, or did you memorize it?
I can memorize it.
Go ahead, sir.
Mayor and Council, tonight you have before you resolution number 2019-3 declaring October 7, 2019 as Westwood Elementary Day in Friendswood, Texas. As you know, Westwood Elementary is part of the Friendswood Independent School District. It is an exemplary campus and a source of pride for our community.
Has our city attorney approved the wording of our resolution? I have drafted the wording of the resolution, and it is in line with the vision statement of the city of Friendswood. Will our city secretary please read the city's vision statement for the record? The city of Friendswood has the following statement as its vision. Together we build our future in a friendly place to live, work, play, learn, and worship. I will now read the resolution. A resolution of the city of Friendswood, Texas, declaring October 7, 2019 as Westwood Elementary School Day in the city of Friendswood, Texas. It is now time to take a vote. Do I have a motion to accept the resolution?
I move to accept the resolution as presented.
Any discussions?
At Westwood Elementary, we pledge to be kids with character and bucket fillers. At Westwood Elementary, we be honest, reliable, and worthy of trust.
We will be responsible and fair, doing what we must.
At Westwood Elementary, our words and actions show that we care. We will be good citizens and do our share. At Westwood Elementary, we will respect ourselves and others too. We will expect the best in all we do.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations, Westwood Elementary School. This portion of the meeting is adjourned.
Yay, how about that? Yes. Great job, guys. Great job. Yeah, you get to take your names, but make sure we take our picture first. I think we were going to move to the front for the group.
Okay, good. Okay, good. And we'll be behind it. Mr. Reed, Mrs. Reed, did y'all get a picture? I'll get out the picture. Let me get out. No, you want me in the picture?
Ready?
And you can take this with you, and then y'all get to get a copy of the picture when we get it done. And we're gonna go stand out there in the front.
Did I do good? I didn't know. I didn't know like Dave. Did I do it fast?
No, you did it perfect, actually. This is a pin. Oh, this is so cool.
You know, I used to teach her.
This is a fridge.
That's okay.
Hey, Trish.
My grandma and my cousin are here too. The one.
Okay, so you take this, you get to
The one.
you get to take this.
You get to take this.
Do we get the individual photos?
What? And you get that.
Okay. All right, great. Okay. So Violet, go down in front now.
Okay, you can leave that there if you want to. We'll come back.
Okay, so we're going to go down and they're going to stand in front of us, all in front of the dais. What? Yeah, the kids are going to be in the picture, the group picture.
We need the kids back.
So we're going to take a group picture, so everybody down in the front there.
Bring your name tag. Bring your name tag. Yeah, you can.
City manager, have you said hello to him?
Taking pictures?
Okay, y'all line up in front.
Speaking as if you were him, and you're Mr. Rogers.
Violet,
Come line up. Well, you were sitting a great job.
here, Violet, you stand in front of me.
Position 4. I'm position 4. This is position 4. I think you're in position 4. You're right here. No, you're position. Oh, you're right over there.
She's,
You're right by that boy.
what, city secretary?
Secretary.
Yeah, city secretary's over there.
Oh, secretary's over here. I'm sorry.
Robert's in the,
cattle.
You're
herding
right here.
cats.
Position 4.
All right, who's taking the group shot, the official? Aubrey? Aubrey? You got the shot, Aubrey? Can you get us all in?
Angle. Do we need to squeeze in more? Squeeze in more, yeah. We gotta squeeze in more. We gotta touch.
Everybody squeeze in. There you go.
There you go. That's better.
Yeah, great. Awesome, awesome.
Got it, got it.
Way to go, guys.
All right, yay.
You want to tell them we'll bring, their picture will be passed out at school to them later.
What's that? We're going to do it now, and then we're going to go into executive session now, and then we can join the party for a few minutes before we actually take our break.
Go to executive session first, or go take a break? And go to-
Well, I got to read it, though. So we can read it, take a break, and then go in. So let's go back, and so we can get this officially motioned and voted on.
Exemplary was a hard word.
Exemplary is a hard word, but
Mr.
you
Mayor,
did a fantastic
Valley of
job.
Severus, this is Mihaly. Mihaly, this was the ex-astronaut. I don't know
Mihaly's-
if you're considered ex when you're doing astronaut. I mean, if you're always an astronaut, right?
That's what I feel like. We don't have ex-doctors.
Exactly.
What?
I remember you talking about
Yeah?
Cool, yes.
Yeah, good. He needs
You know, you get some.
Thank you so much.
For just a second. Good to see you, yeah. Yeah.
Quick interview.
I got to do some work here, and then I'll get right to you. I might take a quick bathroom break, but I'll get right to you. Thad, great job, man.
Thanks for coming, man. I'm sure they enjoyed you coming.
Okay.
How are you?
He's to own the school.
Hi,
Yes,
how
okay.
are you? Okay. Well, I'm so glad you're here.
All right.
Thank you for doing this. Was this fun? Did you enjoy it?
I guess we don't need Brent.
Yeah, it is.
All right, resolution 2019.
It's scary having an unknown, but you did fantastic. You did really good.
What was your gesture?
Way to go.
Oh, that's very nice.
I taught 3 of those.
You may need to leave the last meeting.
Hey.
The microphone's on.
All right, resolution R 2019-27, a resolution of City of Friendswood, Texas, declaring October 8th, I'm going to say October 8th as Westwood Elementary School Day in the City of Friendswood, Texas.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
Took your motion.
All right, now, hang on one second while I read this next thing, as we're going to go into closed executive session. Item 6, communication from the public regarding executive session topics. Got any cards? Okay. Council may convene into executive session in accordance with the Texas Government Code pursuant to Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governing body in negotiations with the third party with possible discussion and action related thereto in open session. We'll take a break, join the party out here for a few minutes. We'll move into executive session, and we'll be back at 7 o'clock. Request for a 156.4717 acre tract of land located along the future Friendswood Lakes Boulevard between West Ranch and Friendswood Lakes subdivisions, Friendswood, Galveston County, Texas, to change from single-family residential SFR and planned unit development PUD 2019-11 to a revised planned unit development for a residential development Avalon at Friendswood.
Good evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission held their public hearing on this on September 12th, and the vote was 4-2 in favor of the change. I'm going to give a little bit of background. The original PUD on this property was approved in a few months ago. 2019-11 was the ordinance number. So they're changing that PUD. The developer acquired more of the property, and so they expanded it. It's an additional 41 acres now, an additional 53 lots. The previous application was 44 60-foot lots, and now it's 66 60-foot lots. The 70-foot lots, there was 118 before, and now there's 134. Basically, they did away with all of the 80-foot lots, and the 90-foot lots went from 15 to 59. Their density went down 1/10 of a point from 1.8 to 1.7. They still have the 2 amenity ponds and about 5 acres additional open space. So Planning and Zoning's recommendation, primary reasons for opposition included limited access to the amenity lakes for the majority of the homeowners, since the lots surrounding the lakes extend to the water's edge. 55 lots have direct access out of the 259 total lots in the subdivision. Percentages of lot sizes were not comparable to other PUDs. 77% of the lots are below 90 feet in width, the minimum for single-family residential, and a lack of amenities, no trails, community ponds, small parks, etc. Reasons for approval included market conditions, provides a variety of lots for aging population and millennials who don't want large lots, meets the spirit of the law. The density requirement is under 2.7 units per acre. The quality builder, Taylor Morrison, has a strong track record and meets the general purpose of PUD requirements that are in the zoning ordinance, and it's going to be private streets. And the developer's here for a presentation as well.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Juan Serna. I'm with Meta Planning Design. I'm sorry for my throat. I'm a little sore throat. I believe all of you are somewhat familiar with the approved PUD. So in the interest of your time, I'll try to go through a very brief overview of the proposed revisions to the approved PUD. Primarily focusing on the proposed modifications, which I believe are improvements to the overall master plan. And at the same time, I believe we have been able to address some of your concerns from the initial go-around. So this is the existing conceptual plan that's part of the approved PUD. As mentioned, since the last time, we were able to incorporate an additional 41 acres west of the existing lake. And it was a challenging piece of property, but at the same time, it allowed us to incorporate some additional benefits to the overall plan, circulation pattern, and also address some of your concerns. This is now the subject property. As I mentioned, it incorporates the western portion of the lake. The rest is the exact same property. And this is what we are using as our proposed conceptual plan. As you can see, we were able to develop the western portion and primarily the changes to the approved PUD that we're seeking on this amendment would be basically to increase the overall units. But at the same time, by increasing, we increase the overall 90-foot lots from 7% to 23%, which I think that was a very a concern that we listened to and think that we were able to address in this version. The percent of open space is very comparable, but to the previous plan, we increased it by about 5 acres, but we were able to, again, address one of the concerns, which was increasing the access and visibility to the existing lakes. Now, that's going to be connected through the sidewalk and trail system that connects the homes to that passive open space. That's going to be landscaped, park benches, it's some of the standard Avalon open space package. And as part of those modifications, we were able to decrease the overall density, like mentioned. We're at 1.8 previously. Again, increasing the number of 90s allowed us to drop it down to about 1.7, which I think was the spirit of some of the comments that we heard. And I think that we've done a pretty good job addressing some of those issues. Said all the other components that were part of the original PUD, the gated community, private streets, all the benefits of what we presented as part of the original PUD are still intact. It's just a slight increase in units, primarily focused on the acquisition of the adjacent tract and the increase of 90-foot lots. That being said, I'd like to hear any questions or comments you may have.
Steve?
I guess it'd be the south end of that lake, the bigger lake?
Yes.
Who owns that property, or that's not part of this?
That is part of the development that's within League City, and that's going to allow us to have a circulation system. But clearly it's
So
not
that
part of
south
this.
end of the lake is in League City?
Yes.
Okay.
So those roadways do connect, providing circulation around the lake.
Sally?
I actually have 2 questions.
Sure.
Did I hear you say that now access to the lake would be open to any of the residents
No,
of this community?
It's still going to have the same dual system. The lots are still going to extend to the lake, to the water's edge. But as you can see on the southern lake, as you come in from the main entry off the main drive, we were able to almost double the width of that lake exposure, increasing the common open space that the intent is to activate and allow for a lake view of the lake community.
So the only people who will have access to the lake are those who have built on the lake?
The ones that back up to the lake, yes, but as part of that open space, there's going to be direct access also to the lake for the rest of the
green
community.
areas?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then my other question, I know you talked about a percentage where your density went from 1.8 to 1.7. I always, just as a curiosity thing, love to know, if you had done all 90-foot lots, what would your density have been? And is your density less now?
It is less. I think we presented that option version in the previous approved PUD, which was 2.7, would have been the overall density.
If you had done all 90
Yes.
foot? Okay, so you still reduced your
Yes,
density?
we think that we had a very a density that was in the spirit of the density requirement, and we were well below that at that time, and now we're even lower.
Thank you.
Okay, explain that last part. Is that because you wouldn't have had as much lake, you wouldn't have had as big a lake?
No.
You had more 90 by 130?
Because we have more 90s by 130s, yes, ma'am. So it decreased our density from 1.8, which we had
Okay, yeah,
before, to
decreased your
1.6.
density. Okay, good.
Yes.
So I traveled around Katy to several of your developments. I couldn't get in because they were gated, but did get a chance to walk up to the gate and to look in. Is this comparable to those that you have in Katy as far as lot sizes and homes?
Yes. Every development is unique in its style because of the city that it's within or part of, but the main components are similar. Yes.
It appears to me that you've removed all the 80-foot lots and now made those 80-foot lots 70-foot lots, and really the only more 90-foot lots that you're getting are those that, because you bought the other side or the west side of the lake.
Well,
So there are no more 80-foot lots in this plan.
correct. We ended up deciding switching the 80-foot product to a 90-foot product, and that was in direct result to just the constraints in adding the western property. Just the width and depth of the tract just made it better for the overall community to develop 90-foot on one side and try to get some developable lots on the other side.
And your contention is if you kept the exact same green space that you have depicted in this map and changed all of those lots to 90-foot lots, there's less density here in this picture if you kept all the green space.
If we kept all the green space,
You're
well,
telling the dais that if all of these lots were 90-foot lots, there would be less density.
well, the green space is
I
going to
mean,
change.
more density with 90-foot lots, but this creates less density.
When you look at the overall
I'm looking
development
at the
in-
overall picture.
Correct. The green space would be reduced, or the required green space would be reduced on a larger lot size development.
So you would do away with the green space. At the same time, you would have probably, do you have to increase your retention or detention?
We would have to decrease.
Your retention.
Correct. So the green space would also reduce on 90-foot development than this development right here.
Yeah, so in effect, what you're saying is, if you were to do what our ordinance calls for, 90-foot lots, you would have to do away with the green space. And how many lots would we have then if you did away with the green space and had 90-foot lots? Because you've done away with the 80-foot lots entirely. Now we have 134 70-foot lots.
Yes, sir.
So what would our lots be if it were
I
90-foot lots?
don't have that exact number in front of me, and I don't want to mislead you with it.
And since not everyone has access to the lake, then I don't think this is really approved undeveloped property. I mean, a PUD. So I still can't support it the way it is, but that's just me. I think that everybody who's a developer that builds in Friendswood needs to build on 90-foot lots, and we shouldn't be making variances, because when we do, there'll be other developers come up and they said, well, hey, you let Avalon do it, or hey, you let somebody out here just past Sun Meadows do it. And then this group, the P&Z, their hands are tied because they've done it, and they've done it because this dais has allowed it. Again, we have ordinances, and I think the developers know what the rules and regulations are, and I think we should stick by our 90-foot by 130-foot lots, and that's just my opinion, my honest opinion. Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions?
I won't go through it again, but I agree 100% with what he said.
All right. We do have another chance to discuss this when we get to the ordinance. This is the public hearing part, so just, I know, he's up here, I'm just telling you that, go ahead with questions.
Is this the last time you're coming back to us on this property? But I guess this is more of a plea. This is the last time, right?
Unfortunately, we're kind of constrained because of city limit boundaries.
I know, but
Yeah.
you will not be coming back to us again, correct?
No, that's not the intent here.
Unless they come back with like 80% 90-foot lots, which we would encourage, at least Robert and I would encourage.
Just in response to Councilmember Rocky's question, there has been mention of a possible land swap with the city of League City, or some opportunity to incorporate the entirety of the tract within Friendswood city limits. If that were to take place, I imagine they would come back to y'all to expand. Correct, but we'd have to determine the zoning for that acreage coming in.
Well, we really don't have any say in that right now because that's in the city limits of League City. So
Correct.
we don't have a clue what the bottom half of this lake's going to look like. I mean, it's going to be an Avalon developed property, which I believe is good. But at the same time, we don't know what League City is going to approve or not approve.
I just wanted
And
to let you all know if
that-
it did.
That's a serious question we should all be wondering.
So are the lakes exactly like that same size right now?
Yes.
Those are existing lakes, they're the same size?
True, the scale is a little misleading.
No, but I'm just trying to figure out with the 90-foot lots, if you went all 90.
The lake to the north does not exist today. The lake to the
Correct.
Okay, that's what I
Focus
wanted to
on-
know. That's exactly what I, so
But
there
that
is
is-
no lake at the north right now?
Correct. The north one, that's a very true graphic representation of what to
Okay, so there
expect.
is not a lake there right now?
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for the developer, for the design? All right. Having heard that, are there any citizens who would like to speak in favor of this development? Ma'am, would you like to speak against this development? Please come up.
Yes.
No, we're not going to constrain her. Sorry. Public hearings.
My name is Cynthia Hernandez. I'm a current resident of West Ranch. I actually back up to one of those, the north side of that lake. I have several issues. One is that my property right now leaks water on my front, on my garage thing, on my driveway constantly for a few days after it rains all the time. So a concern of mine would be that lake that they're building on the north side and what that would do to my home in particular and to other homes that also have the same issue that I do with our driveways in West Ranch along Tamina Pass Lane and Bailey Bend. There's quite a few lawns there that actually have that drainage problem. The other concern that I have has to do with the builder. I'm not sure if you all have been to Marbella off of 96 and 146. The builder is Taylor Morrison. Their homes have had to be taken down, completely down to the studs due to mold. And they had mold because the air conditioning systems were not properly sized for the homes. And this has had a great impact on that community. It has also impacted the appraisal district because when I was there protesting, I had also heard about this from other people and other coworkers that live in that section, so in that area. So Taylor Morrison, their homes have been torn down to the studs, so they are not a reputable builder as they claim. I too had a Taylor Morrison home. It was actually Taylor Woodrow at the time in League City, just in Westover Park, just 1 mile down from Friendswood. I too had mold. I was told I was crazy. This is, as I was closing, my inspector turned on my bathtub, the jets, and it flooded. And I could smell something after that. And it turned out that they used sheetrock for foundation. So they didn't pour the foundation right. I had bought a spec home. And I had finished it out, but they always kept me from going to the bathroom. I never knew why. And now I know because they actually hid that from me as I was building the home. And I was, again, told that I was crazy, that I was, not smelling anything. And I actually ended up finding the sheetrock underneath the bathtub and underneath one of the master sinks. And I pulled it out, took pictures of it, and I sent that off to all the vice presidents of Taylor Woodrow, and only the one from Austin responded to me. And because of that, I got my house cleaned up, or that area. It wasn't attached to the walls or anything, but the fact that the builder would do this and to me or to anyone is just not acceptable. I did move to Friendswood because of the reputation. I had always wanted to live in Friendswood, and I finally was able to do that, and I have a really nice home. I love my community, and I would hope that you all, as citizens of Friendswood, would care about the homes that are being built here, and that you would want a reputable builder. It's a shame that all those trees are going to be cut down, and there's tons of owls that live there, and it's a shame that it's going to have to happen. But if the lady who owns that property wants to sell to the developer, I can't stop that. I don't think I would love to, but at the very least, I would like for y'all to consider another builder because I'm not sure if you really want this in Friendswood. And I would urge you all to go and talk to people in Marbella. I'm not sure if they're still building the houses back up after they have torn them down to the studs, if that's still happening right now. But I would urge you to go and look at that. And do you really seriously want that to be Friendswood? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Anyone else want to speak on this topic? All right. Item 9, communication. Do we have any other cards for people who want to speak? All right. Anyone in the audience planning to speak for communication from the public and haven't had a chance to fill out a card? If not, I'm going to move on to the next item, which is City Manager's Report, item 10.
Mayor and Council, I'll be brief. Coming up on Saturday, November 9th, at Centennial Park, we'll hold our annual Fall Hall event. This will be done in conjunction with Keep Friendswood Beautiful and American Recycles Day in the city. This is not an area-wide event. It's limited to City of Friendswood residents. You will have to show proof of residency in order to dispose of material there. Not only non-hazardous items will be accepted. There will be free paper shredding from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. With a limit of 200 pounds per vehicle. We will have the availability of electronic cycling this year. As I mentioned earlier, hazardous waste will not be accepted. We will accept donated items for the garage sale that benefits Keep Friendswood Beautiful, things that are in good working condition that could be potentially sold, and proceeds go to benefit our parks. Mosquitoes. There are some areas in the city that are experiencing impacts by the damp weather from time to time, and mosquitoes have become an issue. As a reminder, on the Galveston County side of the city, Galveston County does do aerial spraying periodically. The city will supplement with spraying of our parks and other public gathering places such as schools. On the Harris County side of the city, Harris County does not spray unless there's a confirmed case of West Nile, so the city supplements those areas with our truck. For folks requesting aerial spraying or concerned with their the schedule, please look to the Galveston County website for their routine schedule. As always, feel free to contact us if there's a particular concern that you'd like us to look into. Downtown curb ramps and sidewalks. I'm excited to announce that we've been awarded a grant to install sidewalks throughout our downtown district from 2351 to Cowards Creek along FM 518 Friendswood Drive. The sidewalks would consist of a 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk with 1-foot brick pavers on either side of it to accommodate the 8 feet in width that we had sought before. In addition to that, they will do signal upgrades, converting our wire span traffic signals to decorative mast arm ones, powder-coated black decorative mast arm traffic signals. This is a great feat and a great accomplishment for Friendswood. We had been working for years to get this type of investment in our downtown. This is coming off the heels of our traffic improvement plan application to HGAC last year. We didn't quite meet the funding threshold, but TxDOT was cognizant of our efforts, and when this opportunity opened up, they matched our project with the funds available. Of the $3.5 million, it's completely state funded, so we don't have to do anything. We are welcome to add to it in areas that we want to expand or do something in addition to that to match our downtown improvement plan that was adopted this past year. The city will be responsible for acquiring any easements or anything associated with the project that doesn't fit in the current right-of-way. So hats off to FDEDC and everybody else that has worked on this. Lastly, Hurricane Harvey. We continue to work with residents on the buyout applications that have been approved by the state. This is our hazard mitigation grant program buyouts. Our fire marshal's office and public works is also working tirelessly to close out some of our own facilities that were damaged during Harvey. Each time we seem to make progress, the FEMA changes program managers on us and we take a step back. But we're hopeful to get items completed here shortly, and as they come through, we'll update council accordingly. Thank you.
Thanks, Murad. That is a great success story with the sidewalk grant. So kudos to everybody involved in obtaining that money for us. That was huge, huge. All right, item 11, communication from committees and special reports. Item A is an annual report from Friendswood Chamber of Commerce, President Derek Brown. Who's your assistant here? Curtis, weren't you wearing a cowboy hat last time I saw you?
Yes, that's my different type of wear.
Thanks for taking it off.
My personal protector. He wanted to provide the piece tonight, and he's certainly allowing me to do it. Mr. Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Derek Brown. I'm happy to continue to serve as the chairman of the Friendswood Chamber of Commerce Board, and I'll get to see you again next year. I'm also the chairman-elect for 2020, so I've got another year. But we've had some tremendous successes this year. I know that there's a more detailed report that's available for you guys, as well as the budget, and so I was kind of working through just a quick cheat sheet, if you can, that the role that the chamber was serving in the city, some of the highlights that we've had successes with in 2019, and some that are still scheduled to take place in 2019. Of course, we held the State of the City Luncheon, which was always a big hit. We sold out, hosted that at New Hope Church, and it was standing room only, so thank you for the mayor for providing us for that. With that, we had the chamber reception with the EDC, our party on the patio. Again, that was a big success, and we look to expand on that next year. We host safety awareness seminars held by the Friendswood Police Department. Of course, we'll hold the Business and Healthcare Expo. That was rescheduled due to the storm that we had last month, so we'll have that here in the coming weeks. We've been more successful in hosting candidate forums. We'll continue to do that, maintaining, of course, a nonpartisan position, so we don't endorse any candidates, but we'll house those candidate forums, meet and greets. We did provide location for hurricane awareness and preparation seminars held at the chamber office, and then we can't forget the success we've had with the Christmas parades, Halloween in the Park that's scheduled here a few weeks from now, and then the success we've continued to see with the car show. In addition to that, we do publish demographics of Friendswood in our annual membership guide that reaches about 10,000 members, community members, about 4,000 additional businesses. That does provide a map for all those that receive that or come in the chamber office to receive that. The chamber is continually grateful for its partnership with and support from the city of Friendswood. We have the fortunate position of helping to ensure that there's an ever-present positive and nurturing environment for our businesses. Creating such an environment is a joint effort, and we are blessed to have partners aligned in this vision. Last year, we kind of broke it down and told you what Carol and what Diane were engaged in. The chamber staff continues to be engaged in Galveston County events, city council, emergency management meetings, of course, 4th of July meetings, sitting on the EDC. And Carol's also a member of the Gulf Coast Executive, or Gulf Coast Chamber Executives, which promotes Friendswood throughout the state. We continue to be a thriving community. We continue to see growth in the city as well as in the chamber. The chamber remains ready and willing to work with the city of Friendswood, Friendswood ISD, Clear Creek ISD, and the many businesses and nonprofit organizations that benefit the Friendswood community. Of course, on behalf of the entirety of the chamber board and the staff, we thank you for your time and continued support, and just ask that you let us know how we can continue to be of service. So I open it up to any questions, comments, and input.
I got one thing I want to say. You mentioned the candidates forums and that y'all don't endorse candidates.
Correct.
Last year, y'all did send out an email that did endorse a candidate was a paid ad. I don't know what the policy is on those, but I would look at that in the future because it's pretty misleading.
Absolutely. We'll take that under advisement.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks, Derek, appreciate it. All right, take care. Item 12, discussion and possible action item. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of financing for Public Works, Parks and Recreation, and Friendswood Volunteer Fire Department, capital equipment, and authorize the mayor to execute the financing documents.
Second.
Motion and a second. Rod, did
Just a brief background, council, y'all have budgeted for the purchase of an ambulance for the volunteer fire department, a side steer loader, street sweeper and a vacuum jet combination sewer truck for public works, as well as a dump truck for our Parks and Rec department. Staff is proposing financing the purchase of these equipment over the next 5 years at an interest rate of 2.08%. So it doesn't impact the budget as much and allows for the acquisition of these in a more cost-effective manner.
Questions? All in favor? Great. Okay, item 13, resolutions. We've done Resolution A. Resolution B is 2019-28, a resolution of the City of Friendswood, Texas, hereby designating Sally Branson as representative and Mike Foreman as alternate to the Houston-Galveston Area Council 2020 General Assembly and Board of Directors.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Item C, Resolution 2019-29, a resolution of the City of Friendswood, Texas, Galveston, Harris Counties, submitting a nomination to the Board of Directors of the Galveston Central Appraisal District for 2020 and 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Quick discussion. We're going to submit Scott Brast's name. I think we might as well, because we can submit all 5 names, right, Melinda? So we just add Scott instead of Trish, just go around, include all 5 names and send our letter in. So if everybody's okay with that, all in favor? Great. Item D, Resolution 2019-30, a resolution of the City of Friendswood, Texas, Galveston, Harris Counties, submitting a nomination to the Board of Directors of the Harris County Appraisal District for 2020 and 2021. Motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. In this case, we're submitting Mike Sullivan's name, and in this case, we only have to submit the one name.
Correct.
So, all in favor? Item E, Resolution 2019-31, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Friendswood approving the public funds management and investment policy.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? We could get Katina up here. Any questions? Everybody good with this? Okay, all in favor? Thanks for being willing, Katina. Resolution F, 2019-32, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Friendswood, Texas, approving financing terms for capital lease purchase agreement. Refers back to the item that we just voted on in 12.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
I'd just like to discuss something real quick here. I know that we've agreed to the mayor to execute the financial documents. I just want to make sure that before we spend any of this money, that we get all the possible bids that we can get to ensure that we're getting the very best price.
Yes, sir. We will, and we can bring that item back to council for a final vote on the individual acquisition of the.
Very good. That's just what I want to make sure of.
Did you hear that, Derek? ACU, you guys. Okay. All those in favor? Ordinances, item 14, ordinance number T 2019-37, first reading of an ordinance amending the zoning classification for a tract or parcel containing 156.4717 acres located along the future Friendswood Lakes Boulevard between West Ranch and Friendswood Lakes subdivisions, Friendswood, Galveston County, Texas, to change from single-family residential and planned unit development, PUD 2019-11, to a revised planned unit development for a residential development, Avalon at Friendswood. I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion?
Would it do any good to remind everybody about the ordinance of the minimum lot size up here? I mean, we keep approving, this is the second development that we've approved with a lot size that is nowhere near the requirement that our ordinance states. The PUD is a way to get around the ordinance. Everybody knows that. Every time there's a development and there's a screenshot put up, everybody talks about, well, if we had 90-foot lots, we wouldn't have 259 lots, we'd have 400. So if you can explain to me how if you take the same green space and the same developable land space and you increase the lot size, you get more houses, it's just a facade. It's all smoke and mirrors. So they cut out the green space, and then they make you feel concerned that, oh yeah, well, if I was going to do it, and look, I get it, right? I own a business, so I understand, right? If you can develop less land and get more houses on less land and leave the rest as green space, you make more money. I get it. Makes sense. I'm in business. If I was a home developer, that's what I would do. I would try to do that all over the place. But this governing body, many, many years ago, decided that they wanted an ordinance requiring a minimum lot size. And this will be the second time in my tenure up here, which has been 8.5 years, that we will have approved a development that doesn't have the lot size requirement. So I'm only saying this because I went way long and way overboard on the last time when the guys first presented it, with everything from, creating a product that was affordable to kids getting out of college that starts at $400,000, which I thought that was a little bit of a reach. I know everybody up here knows my position. My position is that we have a minimum lot size ordinance, and I think that we should stick to that. And so that's I hope that I could persuade some of you to agree with that, but that's all I can hope for.
The first one that he mentioned, the first development that they changed the zoning ordinance and improved the PUD, was out here, and they had the same concerns that this young lady did from West Ranch. And they said, "Are you going to flood me?" And they said, "Oh, no, we're not going to flood you." So if you go out there to that new development, they built a berm wall right up against the property that had been there since the 70s, a berm wall, and tried to drain it from the berm wall to the road. Now, the people who are in that new development are 3 feet higher than the people that were there in the existing development. Please go out there and look at what they did out there at Sun Meadow to those people that are butted up to that new development that was going to be less dense than anybody else's. And those houses have had trouble, haven't they, Mo? We've had some flooding issues, we've had some mitigation issues, and now we're being asked to do it again. And we've got people out there at West Ranch that are concerned about, what are you going to do to keep my existing property that is going to be abutted up to this Avalon property, and it's going to, of course, have to drain into this ditch? Well, where's that other part going to go? Has P&Z looked into that? Has our drainage district and the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District looked into that? Well, I know it's going to come before GCCD, and I'll be there. But I'm just saying, we cannot have someone say, oh, we're going to build a berm wall against these 7 or 9 houses back here that abut up to us, and then those people's backyard, they're looking at a wall in their backyard. It's horrible. And this body did it. Not when I was on here. Not when I was here. But this body approved it. And I am just totally against anybody doing that again. So that's my opinion on it. You can do 90-foot lots like everybody else is. But I'm telling you, West Ranch people vote, don't they? Okay, well, they vote.
Is West Ranch all 90 by 130?
It is not. It's a PUD ranging from 60-foot lots up to 90-foot lots.
It's a 1,500 home development.
Correct.
So to be clear, I wasn't on city council when that got approved.
This is the third, not the second.
Correct. And
I said when I was on council.
Yeah, okay.
historically, the property that's for consideration this evening would drain towards West Ranch naturally. And when West Ranch developed, they elevated the property to comply with their floodplain as well as to drain their property through their series of detention ponds. As such, they've had to provide a backside slope swell between West Ranch and the Brakebill tract. And this property, in essence, will do the same thing, and that swell in between would drain the properties in between. So it should improve drainage, but obviously, if there's a particular issue, I've already asked Stephen to engage the young lady that spoke earlier tonight to have our folks go out there and see if there's something that is unique to that property that we need to get involved with.
And just to clarify, I think Robert was talking about the Friendswood trails in Sun Meadows. And I've made the comment before that it seems like, 100% of the time, all the engineered drawings come back and the drainage is approved. And it seems like 90% of the time, the drainage is wrong. Because I know in the forest of Friendswood, we had people get flooded running from their backyard out to the street from property that was developed behind them. So that's all.
Anybody else? Give it to Mo.
Give it to Mo.
Steve?
Well, let me answer some of the comments here. When the 90-foot rule was put in, the same people put in the ability for us to write PUDs. And we have, let's use West Ranch. There was a PUD for that. We have 1,500 people living in Friendswood, enjoying living in Friendswood, because they did the PUD for that, and they allowed that development to go in. And I drive around West Ranch. I think it's spectacular, absolutely spectacular. And as far as Sun Meadow, that subdivision used to flood in a Sunday afternoon storm, and we'd have houses flooded. We had Harvey, and almost no one flooded out there. And that was after the developer had started the drainage work that was agreed to by a PUD here. There was other work that went on too. There wasn't just that. So to just try to demonize PUDs is wrong. It's wrong. They are an ordinance that we're allowed to use, and we're allowed to use our intelligence to look at these developments and see what is the best for Friendswood. It's not a workaround. It's not a requirement that if we approve something for one, we have to approve it for the next. We can look at each one of them individually, and that's what they allow. So I'm going to vote for this. I do want to say, though, I was not joking. Do not bring this back to us again. Do not bring this back to us. It's too difficult for us to do this every single time you guys want to make a change. Get it done.
Anybody else? Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? 4-3. Okay, item 14, ordinance number 7, RT 2019-38, first and final reading of an ordinance adopting the City of Friendswood, Texas general budget for the fiscal year 2019-2020, and I have the motion script, so bear with me. I move that the proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-2020 be adopted as presented, including revenue projections of $79,481,563 and expenditure appropriations totaling $79,285,643. Can I get a second? Motion and a second.
For council's benefit, to sort of explain the legal jargon the mayor just read, staff is recommending the proposed budget is presented to you over the previous meetings. You'll have a tax rate to discuss at the following agenda item, item C. But we're proposing to adopt the budget and lower the tax rate by over a penny from the current tax rate. It includes everything within the base budget, plus all the forces at work and decision packages as previously presented to council.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, item 14B.1. Again, I have the language for the motion. Hang in there, Robert. I move that we ratify the property tax revenue reflected in the budget for fiscal year 2019-2020 as required by Local Government Code Section 102.007C.
I'll make the motion.
That was the motion.
Oh.
I'll make the second then.
You make the second, okay. When I say I move, sorry.
I think I'm listening.
I know Robert's not. Okay. So motion is second. Any further edification on that, Mo? No. This is some legal jargon that I'm not quite.
Now, isn't B1 where we actually discuss the rate?
So B1, you're adopting the revenue that we need for the rate, and I
that's
apologize
insane.
for the confusing nature of this. State law is very explicit in how these action items take place. But item C is where we talk about the rate itself.
So, motion is second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, 14C, ordinance number T 2019-39, first and final reading of an ordinance providing for the levy and collection of ad valorem taxes of the city of Friendswood, Texas, for the tax year commencing October 1st, 2019, and ending September 30th, 2020. And bear with me, I make the motion that the city of Friendswood property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 52.1439 cents, which is effectively a 5.3% increase in tax rate. This tax rate is 2.1% less than the current last year's tax rate.
Second.
Motion and a second. Now, you want to discuss? Go down that way? Anybody want to discuss? Discuss?
Thank you. Thank you for
Yes.
finding that.
Thank you for finding that penny.
Yes.
Okay, I'll discuss it.
Oh, you got a whole book.
Yeah, I got the book. This right here is a wonderful book that Katina and the staff put out. It's the annual proposed budget for 2019 and 2020. It is a awesome, transparent, best estimates of what we think revenue expenditures are going to be. And it's from a very educated historical background. They pretty much know, and then when we get our certified tax dollars that we know that we're going to get certified from Harris County, and then we plug those in. But more importantly, Mo and them, they send out one of these. It's a monthly operations report, and it's even better than the estimates because what it does is it gives us up-to-date, year-to-date numbers. And I kind of just wanted to walk through them because the property taxes and the revenue collected from them, virtually 99% is perfect. Sales tax and alcohol taxes were about 1.3 million off, but that lags because we're not going to get those for 60 to 90 days, so we're probably pretty good there. Our franchise taxes, 88% in, and that also lags the year. So that looks pretty good. But one of the things that I noticed, and the reason why I'm going to support your tax the way you have it, the 1 penny less than the 53, but more than the effective, is because I looked at the permits and fees. We've only collected $1,354,000, and we thought we were going to collect $1,934,000. That's $588,000. So that's telling me something. That's telling me that development is slowing in Friendswood. I thought, man, where else would I might see that? So I'll go back here to sewer, and I'll look into the sale of water meters. We had budgeted $35,000, we've only collected $25,000, almost $10,000 less. That's 26% off of what we've collected in years past. And I did notice that you changed it in the summary from $35,000 to $30,000. So I know that y'all are on this, but when I look at water revenue, when we started to look at, raising rates on revenue, we're $2 million short on revenue. So I could probably justify the 53 cents. I'm really glad that you decided to knock off more than a penny, but I know I can't justify going to the effective tax rate. So I'm going to support you on the 52. I think you've done a great job. I think you all have, and I really do appreciate this monthly. If anything, in corporate America, board meetings around the country, they meet monthly to go over the operations of their corporations. And they give their input on, and they know what's going on. I would recommend that we go in executive session and go over these monthly reports. I'm looking forward to the October, which will show us September at the end of this. And if not monthly, Mary Kay, you shake your head no, but if not monthly, maybe quarterly. I don't know.
Excuse me, but we can't discuss this in executive
This would have to
session.
be
Well,
open.
it's too bad in corporate America, we don't have to do it out in public, but we can know what's going on in the city. And this monthly report is really good. And I really appreciate it because it really gives you up to date on what is real time going on in the operations of our business. I mean, our city, our incorporated municipality.
So I would suggest that you can workshop it once a quarter.
Well, we probably should.
And we can, and you're welcome, Councilmember Griffon, to visit with me weekly or monthly if you'd like to go over that.
There are a couple of things I do want to go over in this
Yes,
book
sir.
with you. Because I did go through department by department, because last month you charged me to find 1.2 million. I did. You want me to go over it with you right now? It might scare the entire city, but I can do it with you.
Anybody else?
I'll vote against it, but I want to thank Katina, Finance Department, Murad, for all that you guys do for the city. I made the comment when we were talking about the bond election stuff that isn't it remarkable that in a city like this you actually get chewed out because you don't spend enough money? With all of the out-of-control government spending across the country, both local, federal, state, it's just out of control. This city staff, this team that represent you day in and day out do a tremendous job of guarding your money. And so I don't take my no vote as a slap in the face. I'm very appreciative of the things that you do.
Brent, got anything? Anybody else? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I should add that, maybe I was supposed to read this. The proposed tax rate is composed of a maintenance and operation rate of 43.216 cents and a debt service rate of 8.9279 cents. So we could be very proud also of the fraction of our tax rate that is debt service is very low in this town. So if you want to compare us to Pearland or somebody else that has a crazy debt load. So, okay, that's all I'm going to say. All in favor? Opposed? All right. 14.d, ordinance number T 2019-40, first and final reading of an ordinance adopting Budget Amendment 12 to the original general budget of the city for fiscal year 2018-2019 to provide for supplemental appropriation and/or transfer of certain funds.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Item 15, communication from mayor and council members. Any volunteers? Kick us off. Steve.
Two things. One, this past Saturday, we had the very first library gala.
Friday.
And several people up here went, and it was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. It was a wonderful event, really well done, and our library looked spectacular for this event. And I haven't seen the final numbers, but it appears we actually made money. And so people were very generous on the silent auction, and including our former mayor Holland won the bidding for mayor for the day. So I think he wants to bring his grandson up to do it, but nonetheless, he did win it. But anyway, it was a really great event for the first time out of the box. We were really, really happy about it. And second of all, if any of you want to participate in Histerween, I got spots. Just let me know. It's Saturday, October 26th.
Sally.
I want to thank PD, Fire, and EMS for our National Night Out. Our little neighborhood is only 11 homes, and we got the full treatment, and it was great, and we really appreciate that. I also really enjoyed the Fire EMS Expo that was held out at Centennial this weekend. That was really a big hit, too. My grandsons especially enjoyed that. And a special shout out to Parks and Rec. I want to thank y'all for the ribbon cutting today for our canoe launch at 1776 Park. That was pretty exciting, and we had a really big group there. So I just want to say thank you. That was the city and the Drainage District and Rotary combining on an effort, so joint effort. And I hope we see more and more projects like that. That was just terrific. So thank everybody who was involved.
Also had fun at the National Night, visiting a couple of neighborhoods, and attended a Keep Friendswood Beautiful subcommittee meeting this last month. Those people are on it. They have so many great projects, and really appreciate them and all the volunteers in our city.
Yeah, I'll add my thanks, Chief Wieners, for participating with all the troops out there for National Night Out, and Greg Otto from Fire Department. You guys did spectacularly out there, and it was a lot of fun running around town. I know Chief took Brent, Councilmember Aaron, worked with him. I guess that's adult supervision maybe for our new council member. first time out, it's great that you were driving Mr. Aaronwood around to various neighborhoods, but it was a lot of fun to be out there and see all the people cooking hot dogs. And it's a great night in Friendswood. Just be very careful with, fire on that evening because, these fire trucks are out partying at all the different neighborhoods. You don't want to have a fire call. You guys already probably have to bulldoze a couple of cars to get out of those neighborhoods because everybody comes and parks and blocks the fire trucks in. But it was fun. Robert?
Just wanted to mention that the Anson Jones Masonic Lodge at 110 East Willowick Avenue is going to be having an open house on October the 19th from about 11 to 4. And if you'd like to come out and visit and check out the different stations and stuff in our lodge, if you've never been in one, come on out. We'll be having an open house and an explanation of what goes on at our fraternity. Thank you.
Right.
I just wanted to thank Chief again for showing me the ropes last week. We went to over to Wedgwood and Forest Bend, and that was all the time we had. We spent almost 2 hours at those two places, and we had 150 people at that Wedgwood one. It was a lot of people. A lot of people at that one. We had a good time. Met a lot of great people. And the other thing, if anybody hadn't seen the dog park yet, I finally got a chance to go over there this week, and that's a pretty neat addition to our city that I think is only going to continue to get better. There's some other things, as we spoke about earlier, we're going to be adding. So if you hadn't checked that out, try to get over there. It's a neat addition. Thanks.
He let you drive his car?
No, I asked him to. He didn't let me drive. I asked him if we were going to go through a zombie apocalypse whenever I got in the car with all the
smart man
with the rounds we had.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Well, Mayor, I would make the motion to approve.
Okay, all in favor? Adjourned.